Welcome to Teaching Truth. From the cradle to the grave. That's the theme for our reflections over these days, weeks and months as we journey with Moses, literally from his cradle right through to his grave. And today we join Moses on his journey as he flees to Midian. Let's dip into the story of that fleeing from Exodus chapter 2. Let's read the Bible together. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labour. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Glancing this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And as a result of those actions, Moses had to flee to Midian. Little did Moses realize that when he raised his hand to kill and to smite the Egyptian, he was leaving, as it were, the University of Egypt and entering, as it were, the University of God. Moses was about to learn the first of many, many lessons that he would learn in his life, lessons which God himself would teach him, lessons which God had prepared for him to learn, and lessons that would define and shape him as a true leader. And here we discover that Moses acted on impulse. He saw the Egyptian beating the Hebrew. And Moses, in a sense, the blood went to his head and he went into a bit of a rage. He became impulsive and he decided to take matters into his own hands. And therefore, Moses killed the Egyptian. Now, it's clear that this killing was not an accident or anything like that, because he looked one way and he looked the other to see if anybody was watching. And then he decided to kill the man. And then he buried him in the sand. Bear in mind, this is in a desert area, and therefore there wouldn't be many rocks or hideouts in which to dispose of a body. So he would have to dig a hole in the sand and bury the man there. The beating was with the intent to kill. And rather than waiting on God and perhaps listening to God, Moses kills the Egyptian to save the Hebrew. The Hebrew is one of his own people. And as a result, Moses then has to flee to Midian. Now, where is Midian and why is Midian significant? Well, Midian in those days was a place on the other side of the Red Sea. And to get there from Egypt, you would have to travel through the Sinai Peninsula. Midian is south of modern-day Israel and Jordan in today's Saudi Arabia. And it wasn't the most prosperous of places, far from it. But what it was suitable for, as we'll discover in our reflections in due course, is that it was at least suitable for raising flocks of sheep. And so Moses, as part of God's great plan and purpose, I believe, has cause to flee to Midian. See, Moses has made a mistake. Moses has killed an Egyptian. His reputation has taken a knock. His integrity has been dented. And as a result, because of what he has done, Moses has to flee. On a commuter train travelling into Chicago one morning, Charles Shine, a successful advertising executive married with one daughter, played by Clive Owen, strikes up a conversation with Lucinda Harris, a role played by American-born actress Jennifer Aniston, an alluring woman who is a married financial advisor. In the movie Derailed, the two show each other photos of their respective daughters. A mutual attraction develops and the two begin meeting frequently. Almost predictably, they decide to consummate their affair and end up in a hotel in a less desirable part of the city, where an armed man, Philip LaRoche, bursts into the hotel room and steals their bank, credit and business cards with their contact details on them. Charles and Lucinda in the movie, not wanting their spouses to learn of this affair, agree not to report the crime. Shortly after, LaRoche contacts Charles and blackmails him into paying $20,000 and then a month later $100,000, the savings that he has for his daughter's medical treatment. And after being arrested for embezzlement to cover up his tracks, he eventually ends up in prison. Subtle seduction on a commuter train one morning, which Charles Shine, a respectable married man, fell for, was the first slippery slope down a spiral staircase. A spiral staircase which led to him losing not only his good name, but his reputation, his lifelong savings, and nearly his wife. His failure to protect his integrity during that first meeting on the train derailed his character. And Moses in his life was derailed from staying at the station of Egypt. Moses was put onto a track which saw him hurtle towards Midian. Moses had to flee because of the act which he had committed. Are you in a situation today that you are seeking to go hide? You are seeking to flee because perhaps of something you've said or something you've done? Well, sometimes God takes us to a place that in and of ourselves we would not want to go. God sometimes takes us to a Midian situation. Moses had to flee, and perhaps today you need to, with God, flee to wherever your Midian situation is, as part of learning those lessons that God wants to teach you, as part of being, as it were, in the university of God. Moses had to flee to Midian because of what he had done. And God was going to teach him in that situation. Is God seeking to teach you something today? Be open if God is taking you towards your Midian to learn from what God wants to teach you. Just as he taught Moses, God wants to teach us.